You guys are live.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. This is Monta from Bridges to Change, and welcome to Friday Coffee with Monta. And we're super excited today. We have Clackamas Women's Services in the house. The development coordinator, Ashley McCardle. Is that right?
Perfect. That is perfect.
With us this morning, and so we're super excited. One, that it's raining and the smoke is diminishing.
For sure.
How is it over there right now?
It's getting much better. I'm one of those people that's constantly on the airnow.gov site to check what I've never known so much about air quality and colors and all those things. I'm constantly checking, but the rain has definitely been a really great thing for the county, and more and more people each day are getting out of those danger zones, and even people are starting to potentially get to go back into where they were evacuated too. So it's getting better.
Getting better. Yes, I too had not ever really checked air quality, and I didn't even really know it was a thing. And it's very complex, like very sophisticated.
Changes very quickly.
Well, so we're super excited. Bridges to Change started in Clackamas County, and I know in terms of the ladies that we're serving in that county and our female mentors out there, I'm sure are interfacing with your services often and have been for many years. So just to start us off, can you just tell us, what does Clackamas Women's Services do? What are you all about?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. So Clackamas Women's Services, we are obviously, by the title, we serve all of Clackamas County. We have been around since 1985, and we serve survivors of domestic violence, sexual violence, stalking, elder abuse, trafficking, and that the way that works out is we have emergency shelters. We do have a shelter. We do a 24-hour 24-hour support line. We have legal advocacy. We have mental health counseling, children's programming. We also offer Latina services, and we have a violence prevention education program that goes into elementary, junior high, and high school.
Yeah.
Another thing about our organization quickly is that we are lucky to be, we share a space at the Family Justice Center, which is located in Oregon City. And it allows a lot of different community partners to be on site, which we think is really valuable for someone coming in to get services, to kind of have, I hate to say like one-stop shop, but in a way where they can come in and really get as many services as needed, and for them to have to maybe tell their story less times than they really should have to, considering that does bring up some re-traumatization. So we, for example, Clackamas County Sheriff's does take care of the safety aspect. They man the front desk. We have DHS people that are on site, co-located. We have legal aid on site. So hopefully with all of that, when someone comes in to get services from us, they can really get everything they need and get the ball starting on their road to recovery.
Yeah. It's interesting. I actually didn't think about the impact from having to retell the story. And I probably would assume, like, from that first initial maybe contact with law enforcement to providers to the hospital to emergency like EMT services, I bet you the ladies could end up telling their story 5+ times before they get settled down. Yeah,
for sure. And also with the way our services is, we have people We have services that are people that are non-mandatory reporters and mandatory reporters in the same building, which also gives the survivor real control of their story and kind of what they want to happen. We're just there to support them and give them all the options. It's a judgment-free zone. They come in, we want them to know we're here for him or for them. Here are the services. If it is a situation of abuse and they want to report it, we can walk them right down the hall. If it's not the time for them and that's not the appropriate plan of action that day, they don't have to, but they still have someone, an advocate to talk to help them. And that is a really beneficial thing to have on site.
Sure. Could you, or I'm not sure if you probably do, can you share a little bit about who founded the organization and why?
So we started as just the shelter in 1980 and 1985, and it was kind of a the shelter that we have now is in the same spot. It was more of a community, a small community that started the shelter. And then throughout the years, more and more services were added as time kind of grew on too, and like noticing that it's not just about housing. There's so many other aspects during abuse that people need to look at, whether that's legal services, counseling, everything that comes around with that. We all know that, being just in a sense, if a person that might be homeless, it's not just about being homeless. There's usually some other things that need help. And so just getting them housing is not going to fully get them on the road to recovery. So more and more services. And then I believe it's been about 5 or 6 years is when our organization, they went out into around the country to kind of, there was a model in Arizona that models what we're doing at the Family Justice Center that has all the organizations together. And so about 5 or 6, I think it's about 6 years ago now, is when we started offering all the services with our providers and became more of a community partner.
Wow, that's fantastic. And it's great to kind of see the growth and how organizations are able to pivot, I'm assuming, to the need that was needed in Clackamas.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's 9:10, Ashley, and our organization wanted to take a moment and think about Breonna Taylor. We know that a couple days ago, there were no formal charges filed against the officers in her murder. And as an organization, we take a very strong anti-racist stance. And we just want to take a moment of silence for about a minute and just think about Breonna, her family, and the continued injustices, and give that just a little bit of space. So I'm going to take about a minute to do that, and then we'll go back on.
So sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay, thank you for taking the time with us today. It also kind of leads into the services that you're providing, especially for women who are victim or survivors that are experiencing domestic violence, and with our Supreme Court Justice who just passed away that held a very powerful seat. how do you see advocacy changing in this time where people are actually starting to stand up, and I think there's a lot of allies coming together right now within this, the movements that are happening. And are you feeling any of that impact over where you all are at? Are you feeling any of the momentum happening?
Yeah, I think yes and no. I mean, I feel like I definitely feel like things like this with strong organizations, hopefully will just make our organization stronger. And we want to just continue to let those people getting services know that we are fighting for them. We always believe them. And, our advocacy is not, I mean, it won't change for I should say, I don't want to say for the worse. I mean, we're always going to be there and providing those services as long as we can. So we're not going anywhere. I do, it with the population we serve as far as domestic and sexual violence, it's a really interesting time, also a really scary time, because these type of violences really feed off of the social distancing and the isolation that's happening right now with, COVID and all this too. And so, it puts us in a position that we know that there's going to be even more people out there to serve once the pandemic is over, and what that's going to look like. We've already seen our numbers go up. So on that side, we see that there is even a greater need on that aspect. And so, we know that we're, on the front lines, and we're always going to be there for survivors, no matter what.
Yeah, so you're definitely seeing COVID and the isolation and the need to social distance impact survivors coming in for services.
Yeah.
Do you think it's also on the kind of the flip side of the coin, giving survivors a little bit more courage to come forward because they are in isolation, or does it work the other way? I'm just kind of curious if maybe it's had the opposite effect in terms of survivors ready to come forward.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I guess we would have to say yes a little bit, because since we are seeing numbers increase, that means that people are coming forward. We did add a chat and text function once COVID started too, which added a little bit more of a safety way to reach out to our organization. So I think maybe we added some tools that made it a little easier for people to reach out. And so, I think it's unfortunately, I don't think we're going to really know the exact extent for a while. But like I said, we have seen numbers go up. So you're right, that could be that people are willing to reach out. So it's a really hard time with the, if you're in the home with an abuser and all the manipulation tools that they might use, and, control, where you can go, who you can talk to, when you're already limited by the world of COVID too. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, to think about being able to communicate through text probably opens up an opportunity for survivors to come forward, because they don't have to get on the phone. It's a little bit more comfortable not to get on the phone and to send a text message in life in general. And so this probably provides some security there. For friends that, this isn't on our list of questions, but I was thinking about it as it came along.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about, I'm sure there are some survivors that are still being victimized right now that might have a best friend or someone that they're confiding in, but they're asking them not to come forward and they're trying to get it worked out. Is there any kind of advice that you would give for our listeners who might have that friend who's even in a somewhat, unknown situation, to help talk them through of how to step forward and find some courage to seek some help?
Yeah, I feel like, it's a very, you have to be careful with that. I think you have to just be, help them make some safety plans for when they are ready to leave. Try to give them as much information as you can give them in a safe manner. Always be checking on them. I think the best thing to know is just to let them know that you're here. Help them out as much as you're able to. And like I said, if you can help them come up with some safety plans to have when they are ready. And let them know that services like ours exist and that, there's a 24-hour line. I think that, that's what the most important thing that people could do for friends and family right now, and just constantly checking on them as much as they can.
Yeah, thanks for that. So is there any other kind of impacts from COVID that you're seeing within your organization that is interesting or that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so as COVID hit and we had to pivot pretty quickly, and all of our staff pretty much went to work remote. And so all that meant that all of our services went remote, because of course we know that we weren't going to not serve our survivors. So one of the most interesting thing was that we did have, for our emergency shelter that we have this beautiful shelter. And the whole idea of our shelter that was actually redone a couple years ago is to create community. So when the families are at this shelter, they have their own space, but there's a lot of community areas. There's a huge kitchen where we really want them to come together and cook and share their life and their cultures, and there's a lot of space for that communal aspect. Well, of course, with COVID, that we needed to have a space for our survivors to be able to be safe and practice social distancing with their family too. So we did have to shut down our shelter and then find other housing for our participants, which we were happy to do, and we were able to do that very quickly. But one of the things that we realized is that everybody that is in our shelter, we provide everything from all the supplies and food. So then we had to make sure that we were still able to provide those. And one of the things we noticed was some of the people ended up in places that maybe didn't have a kitchen and maybe just a microwave. And so we had to quickly start, our shelter staff got really quick on and started, delivering boxes of food every week and, kitchen supplies. Everybody that moved in kind of got a starter kit of what you would need for, for a kitchen and, supplies. And then weekly after that, we started delivering things. And another wonderful partnership that we were able to start out of this is we worked with Hacienda and Portland Mercado. And we built a partnership where every week, 2 vendors from the Mercado are preparing fresh, culturally specific meals for our participants, and they get dropped off, and so they can just be heated up. And we've been doing that since about April. And so, out of, and it was a really mutually beneficial partnership. They were seeing their numbers go down because of COVID, and we needed meals. And so we were able to work together in a beautiful partnership, and it's still going strong. So we're really happy having that partnership, and feel really lucky that we were able to find ways around that to make sure that our survivors are still getting everything they need from us.
Yeah, and I like how you were able to weave in supporting Mercado, though, so you're doing 2 things at once. You're supporting your survivors there, but you're also supporting minority-owned businesses to keep functioning. Yeah. So fantastic. And you have a Latina program there as well, right?
We do, yeah. We one of our programs is called Promotores. And it's a really, really cool program. And what it does is it takes members of a community, and they are trained to become basically paraprofessionals, which is to increase the accessibility of domestic and sexual violence in the Latina community. And we've noticed that it really bridges the cultural and language and economic barriers that service providers in that community. And I think that it's important for us to make sure that we're always making sure that our survivors are getting the services that they need and not having extra barriers that are not necessary. We're not perfect as an organization, but we're always, looking at our staff and our board to make sure that we are representing the people that we're serving. Clackamas County as a whole isn't as diverse as other communities in Oregon, but we work really hard to make sure that our staff and board percentage of people of color is more representative of the people we serve than our community as a whole. And we really try to do that. For example, if we offer a support group, it's not going to be just in English. We'll have also the same support group in Spanish. We're not going to let that be a barrier. If someone comes in and their language is not spoken by someone on our staff, of course, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they get someone that speaks that language, so that they are not getting less than or worse service than someone that maybe can't speak English.
Sure. So it sounds like some of the work you're doing over there in terms of your equity work is really focusing on making sure you're creating access that's similar to Caucasian counterparts that would come into your program, and then also proper representation within your organization that represent and look like the folks that you're serving.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, barriers are such a big thing to our survivors. They've had to, they have barriers for, they have someone that is manipulating their income and where they can go. And so even just getting to our organization or making that call is already, a survivor has gone through so many hoops. And so, of course, we want to make sure that we're not adding more to that. And, it is going to be probably someone's worst day when they come in to see us. And if we are making that harder for them, that's not good. And so we want to make sure that we're not doing that.
This might be more of a question for one of your service folks that are providing the service. So if you don't know the answer, it's okay.
Okay.
But we know that, the Latinx community is very family oriented, and they tend to try to address needs within their own community. And so when you're talking about removing barriers and creating access, so if a Latina is reaching out as a survivor to receive services, it sounds like most likely they would meet with someone who is Spanish speaking to help them, guide them into like this very scary moment of like stepping out of an unsafe environment.
Yeah, I do not, unfortunately, I do not have like the exact information on that because I'm not on the service side. Yeah. But yes, if someone comes in and there is someone available, we of course would do our best to make sure, because we want to make sure that the information is getting shared properly and is clear, and that person is getting those services. So yeah, we would do whatever we needed to do to make sure that they were helped. Yeah.
Well, is there anything in the last couple of minutes that we have, is there anything that you would want to make sure that our listeners know about Clackamas Women's Services before we head out?
Yeah, I appreciate that question too, because I think I mentioned, but our mission at Clackamas Women's Services is to break that isolation of abuse. And so I think one of the most important things to let people know is that we're here, and we don't want people to suffer in silence. And if we don't want that to keep quiet, because we know that is the breeding ground for so much of that violence. So we're here for people. So please reach out. And we're always on the side of victims, or survivors, and we will always believe your story, and we're there for you.
All right. Well, Ashley, thank you for taking the time this morning. Super glad it's raining and it's going to clear up over there for you all. And thank you for the the important work that you're doing over there to support survivors in our community, specifically in Clackamas County. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It was wonderful talking to you, and hopefully our paths will cross in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.